Fedor Emelianenko, my favorite of all time.
Fedor is known as the greatest heavyweight of all time.
Todos nós temos, né? Eu acho que para mim o número 1 para mim é o Fedor Emelianenko. Eu sou muito fã dele. É um cara que
If you don't know, now you know. That's the GOAT, Fedor Emelianenko.
Fedor was the hardest. That never changed his expression.
The best fighter in the world, Emelianenko Fedor. He's the best. He's our favorite.
Is Fedor the GOAT? The answer is yes. Of course it's yes.
Fedor Emelianenko was the favorite fighter of your favorite fighters. He was the legend before the stars of today were in their diapers. Revered as the best heavyweight fighter in MMA, Fedor was as hard as the Russian terrain, an indomitable heavyweight, a dead-eyed killer in the cage. He was a real ninja in there, a silent assassin. But then you take a look at him outside the ring and he looks like your average guy on the street. Never the loudest, boldest, biggest, or the strongest in the room, but he's a true icon of the sport. Jon Jones is now referred to as the GOAT, but this guy was the standard bearer before him. Whether you're a fan or not, there's no denying that his CV is one of the most remarkable out there in MMA history. Filled with a who's who of the sport, he was the Michael Jordan of the game before they tried to make Jon Jones the Michael Jordan of MMA.
I tend to lean towards Fedor because my heart was with Fedor.
Who do you think is the best heavyweight to have ever fought in MMA?
I've always liked Fedor.
From his modest beginnings in Russia to his peak in Japan's Pride organization, Fedor's journey is a compelling tale that's not only defined an era, but helped shape the future of the sport. Let's go back in the timeline and find out more on Fedor. In 1976, he was born in Rubizhne, now a part of Ukraine. Fedor's journey was not one of privilege, but of perseverance. 2 years later, Fedor's family relocated to the Russian mining town of Stary Oskol. Who could have imagined that a young boy from such a small, remote place would grow up to become one of the greatest heavyweight fighters in the world? At the age of 11, he began his journey in combat sports by practicing sambo and judo. Training under Vasily Ivanovich Garilov, a coach who would play a pivotal role in his development, this early introduction laid the foundation for his remarkable career in mixed martial arts. He honed his skills in the rugged Russian countryside, where every snowfall became an opportunity to train harder and embrace the cold and struggle. His childhood coach fondly remembers his time, stating Fedor didn't stand out among his peers and that he was not the most gifted athlete in terms of natural talent. However, what set him apart was his unwavering perseverance and dedication. Each drop of sweat was a testament to his commitment, each bruise a badge of honor. This mindset and work ethic became a hallmark of Emelianenko's career, allowing him to overcome challenges and steadily improve his skills. With a background in combat sambo and judo, Fedor showcased a diverse skill set to excel against a variety of opponents. His accomplishments include a 4-time combat sambo world champion and a 7-time national champion, as well as a 2-time bronze medalist in Soviet national judo competitions. Russia was going through a lot in those days. The collapse of the Soviet Union was a shocker. This led to upheaval in Russia as well as other erstwhile Soviet countries. Following his graduation in 1994, he served in the Russian army from 1995 to 1997, initially as a military firefighter and later as a member of the tank division. This period was challenging for him, as it coincided with his parents' divorce. However, financial difficulties led him to leave all this behind in the year 2000. But as they say, hard work pays off, dreams come true, bad times don't last, but bad guys do. True to his character, he earned the certification of Master of Sport in both judo and sambo in 1997. Seeking better opportunities, he transitioned to professional mixed martial arts, a decision that would ultimately reshape his life and elevate him to legendary status in the sport. He debuted in rings and continued fighting there until 2002 with a record of 10-1. The first blemish on his CV came when he was on the receiving end of a controversial doctor's stoppage loss against Tsuyoshi Kosaka. This would be the solitary loss inside the cage for more than a decade. Then came his time in Pride, where the legend of the last emperor was born. The Pride Heavyweight Grand Prix was seen as the biggest and baddest tournament in heavyweight MMA, and Fedor ruled over it since winning the title in 2004.
Fedor, no matter what, people can argue all they want. He is the greatest heavyweight there has ever been in the sport of MMA.
Apart from his fights, his entrances became iconic in Japan and later in the Americas. It's common for a fighter walkout where the fighter oozes confidence, bravado, and aggression. Some even try to look as cocky as they can, but Fedor was a different breed altogether. He would calmly walk down the aisle with a regular look and a monk-like composure on his face. A casual MMA fan might be forgiven if he mistook Fedor for an average Joe coming out to fix the cage before the main event of the night. An average Joe, what an irony, since inside the cage this Joe would be an ice-cold killer, a master tactician who can beat his opponent at his own game. Fedor's CV in Japan looks like that of a mythical fighter. It had the who's who of MMA royalty on it. He faced giants of the sport, from the formidable Antonio Nogueira to the relentless Mirko Cro Cop, the monstrous Quinton Jackson, and legends like Kevin Randleman and Mark Coleman, dispatching each with a mix of technical mastery and raw determination. Each victory added another chapter to his legacy, solidifying his status atop the heavyweight division and building an empire on the ruins of those who dared challenge his throne. Fedor's rivalry with Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira became a cornerstone and a highlight of his legacy. Many believed Big Nog was nearly invincible with his grappling prowess, but Fedor's relentless ground and pound got him the W. Fedor's tactical skills led him to victory against the resilient Nogueira at Pride 25 and later at Shockwave 2004. This rivalry was the talk of the town, especially after the no contest in their second match, but Fedor's dominance was clear in all three fights. Mirko Cro Cop, another Pride legend, his battle with Fedor was a classic. It was the fight of the undisputed number 1 and number 2 heavyweights, a fight that fans clamor for but is rarely seen among the sporting greats. The fight between Cro Cop and Fedor at Pride Final Conflict in 2005 is regarded as one of the greatest heavyweight battles ever. Initially, Cro Cop showcased his striking skills, but Fedor turned the tide with a pivotal takedown. Ultimately, Fedor retained his championship title with a tough contest. Pride closed its doors in 2007 after multiple scandals hit the Japanese MMA scene. He had no choice but to finally move over the Pacific to fight stateside. He was signed up by an ambitious MMA promotion, Affliction. Finally, Fedor was coming to the United States. A man feared by his opponents is ready to wreck the shop and create a new world order. Again, Fedor proved that he's the big dog in there. His first fight was against Tim Sylvia at Affliction. It was his breakout moment with a large, casual American audience. Russia versus America is a narrative being fed for decades now, and this was being advertised. A stereotypical Russian hitman versus a soldier of America sounds like a spy movie plot. Well, narratives are easy to build, but it seldom makes sense. As for the fight, the former UFC champ Sylvia was tapping within 36 seconds. It was a masterclass of how to finish a fight. Dana White was a big detractor of Fedor, but even he acknowledged Fedor's talent after this fight. These fights not only showcased Fedor's talent, but also helped elevate the heavyweight division and the sport as a whole. Next, he picked apart Andrei Arlovski, knocking him out cold in the first round. While Fedor was on a rampage on American soil, Affliction folded within a year, and Fedor again switched, this time to Strikeforce. This is where cracks first started to appear. He faced a dangerous BJJ specialist in Fabrizio Verdum, which was seen as an easy matchup before the blockbuster matchup with Alistair Overeem eventually. Well, that was a dream we woke up from midway. Within 69 seconds of the fight, Fedor was tapping to a triangle armbar. This tap was felt around the world. Verdum's victory sent shockwaves through the MMA community. The MMA landscape had shifted and everyone was eager to see what would come next. What many thought was a fluke later became a fact of life. This led to back-to-back losses against first Antonio Silva and then Dan Henderson, both by finishes. The name Fedor suddenly felt a bit mortal. He was dominated like never before, looked slow, and just wasn't his usual self. After the Hendo knockout, Zuffa, who now owned Strikeforce, released Fedor. Fedor fans were devastated, and he went back to the Far East again to reclaim his legacy, but went on to fight sporadically in the next 6 years. A moment of rejoicing came when he signed with Bellator back in 2017. Could we see the old Fedor? What can be expected from his time in Bellator? Well, majority passed him by at this point. MMA in 2007 was on a McMania hype train, and this led to a stream of new millennial fans joining the bandwagon. He fought there until his retirement in 2023 with an uninspiring record of 4-3 in the promotion. Across multiple organizations, Fedor amassed an impressive record and became a legend in the sport. Each fight was a story, each victory a chapter in a saga of resilience and greatness. He faced giants of the sport, yet emerged unscathed, showcasing not just physical prowess, but a profound understanding of the art of fighting. A big critique of not only Fedor, but also Japanese MMA in general, was the freak shows and the bizarre fight matchups. In the 2007 New Year's event at the Saitama Super Arena, Fedor faced the towering Hongman Choi, who stood at 7'2". It was a classic David versus Goliath matchup, ultimately leading to victory via armbar for the Russian. However, it took quite some time to get there. Another such matchup was his fight against Zuluzinho, a 6'7" tall, 400-pound Pride alum. Fedor made quick work of the Brazilian Vale Tudo fighter, finishing him in 26 seconds. Despite what some may think about him, he was one of the greatest fighters of all time and was definitely the greatest heavyweight until the Pride era. The only blemish on his career can be the UFC rejection. First, he was driving it. Later, Dana himself made sure he wanted no part of the Russian.
He has become my obsession, man. You know? He has become my obsession. I want it worse than the fans want it now, believe me.
Dana White has a way of shaping the narrative, focusing not only on fighters within but outside of the UFC sphere. Especially after Affliction collapsed, Dana did everything in his power to downplay Fedor and his achievements.
He refused to come into the UFC and fight the best.
And he's been tested lately? He hasn't fought anybody.
But he's never lost
He's never lost.
in his career.
Dana White's shifting narratives serve as a reminder of how the sport's history is sometimes written by those in power. Still, true fans and historians will always recognize the significance of Fedor and others who paved the way regardless of their promotional affiliations. In a world where egos often clash, Fedor stood apart. Even as accolades piled up and fame beckoned, he remained the same. Being a devout Christian and a family man, he took his fame with the grace of a swan. He was a true role model, and not just for his feats in the ring, but for the values he embodied. Fedor remains one of the most celebrated fighters in MMA, and it played a significant role in defining combat sports as a whole. What are your thoughts on Fedor's legacy? What moments or fights from Fedor's career stand out to you the most? What do you think made Fedor so successful? Let us know in the comments. Like and share the video, and on your way out, do hit the subscribe button as well.